All right, thank you all, and welcome. Before I go too much further, I do want to introduce to you John Hermey. John is the president of DevicePharm, and John and I are both going to be sharing the platform today as we talk about creating relevant brands. My name again is Clay Wildman. I'm the CEO, and my functional role is Chief Strategy Officer at DevicePharm. And that's the last you're going to hear about John and me until the end, when you'll have an opportunity to decide for yourselves if you want to hear any more about John and me at the end. I do want to start by congratulating two of you who managed to get the DevicePharm color palette today. The gentleman in the back with the red and black, much appreciated, and the lady here, so thank you. Thank you both very much. There'll be some extra creme brulee for you at the end of the day. All right, so anyway, today we're going to talk about creating relevant brands. Now, a warning, we have processes, okay? We have structured processes running out our ears to create brands so that we ensure that we leave no stone unturned. We have a standardized approach that we use each time. Okay, that's a warning. The good news is we're not going to bore you with all that stuff as we go through here today. We do have great processes. We've got a great track record for creating relevant brands. However, at this point in the day, you don't care about all that yet. You don't care that we have any of that yet. So you also don't care that our CVs look nice and our mothers are proud of where we went to school and all that kind of great stuff that people tend to want to hit you with at the beginning. What we want to do really is save all that to the end of our discussion today. We'll tell you a little bit more about us, but only really once it's relevant. Once it's relevant to you and you have some context for learning more about DevicePharm as a company and about John and me in particular as individuals. So, today, let's talk about why you should care. Or, another way of looking at it is this presentation that we're giving right now, is this going to be relevant to you today at this moment? There's an old marketing axiom, many of us are familiar with it. It focuses on repetition. Okay, and repetition is the key to memorability. A lot of us, like a lot of you like me, grew up in marketing in big consumer organizations, PepsiCo and Frito-Lay in my case, and let's hammer 18 gazillion impressions and bludgeon them to death until they all crave Doritos, for example. All right? Old way of thinking. Really the key today, and with all of the multimedia channels that consumers live in today, including those who are highly technical, like surgeons and scientists and others of that nature. Really the key to being memorable today is relevance. It's not repetition. It's relevance. Now, for many of you in the room who are involved in early stage medical device companies, technology companies, this is good news. For marketers with small budgets, this is great news. The key to being memorable is relevance. Now, when we talk about marketers with small budgets, that would be, if you talk to any marketers, how many? All marketers. Okay? I've yet to meet a marketer who had all of the budget that they wanted. So this is good news, really, for all of us. Let's put some context around this. Again, getting into the point of why is this discussion even relevant? What's the value of brand relevance? What is the value to us as marketers or as us as people who are running companies or creating brands? What's the value of having a relevant brand? What's it worth? Key statistic, and again, coming from Brand Finance magazine, 62% of the global business value that exists in the world today is intangible. Okay? It's not bricks and mortar, it's not factories, it's intangible assets, of which brands are a huge part of that component. 62% of the global business value is intangible. These are intangible assets, they're brands, it's customer goodwill, it's trademarks, etc. And so if these intangible assets are worth so much, then we better put some emphasis around making them relevant. So, brands, relevant brands, have real value. When we look at the value, if you will, of being relevant as a brand, it becomes especially important for companies that are emerging companies or companies with emerging or new technologies, which applies to many of us here in the room. Let's look at it this way. There are two real factors here that we want to look at with respect to brands. One is brand strength. Brand strength is really a leading indicator of growth potential and future value of the brand. It's the world that a lot of us live in, is developing brands that are going to be really viable at some point down the road. There's also brand stature, more of a lagging indicator, but really talks about the current operating value of the brand. If we focus over here on brand strength, what are the primary components of brand strength, of having a strong brand? Well, first of all, it's differentiation, and in particular, it's energized differentiation. We'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slide. It's also, however, relevance. If we look at these two factors and we think about, how do I get to a high D or high differentiation? Okay? I'm different from the crowd. iPhones. When iPhones first came out, very different. High level of differentiation. A lot of strength, and the buzz around iPhones were certainly a leading indicator of where that brand was going to go. Okay? It still has a lot of differentiation, but it also is moving over here to having a lot of current value as well. If we look in the music world today, in just the last year, okay, Lady Gaga, all right, who, frankly, I spent a lot of time trying to figure that one out over the last year. I first heard it. Really a lady? Is it not a lady? I had sort of sorted through all that. Once I got that locked in, she's different. She's got talent, but she's also got a shtick. She's different from the rest of the entertainers. Therefore, high future growth value there with Lady Gaga. I think we figured out she has sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 million individual song downloads in the last year. So a lot of buzz, and she seems to be everywhere at this point. So she's done a great job of creating high D. We're talking today more about high relevance. Now, relevance can be attributed to a future brand, a buzz brand, if you will, like an iPhone. But also relevance can be something you can maintain over time. You look at these brands. You look at Apple and Disney, Google, Starbucks, Nike. Those brands have remained relevant over time. And I think that when we look at ultimately where are we emphasizing long-term value, we really need to look at relevance with our brands. Okay? So let's take a look at one variable there. We talked about differentiation around brands, and not just differentiation to be different, but high energy differentiation. The kind of differentiation that drives brand loyalty. Okay? Ultimately, we all want brands that people are intensely loyal to. If you look at the airline industry, very commoditized industry. I think we'd all agree. Okay? But if you look in that industry and you look at differentiation and relevance as the driving factors of loyalty, Virgin America, Southwest, JetBlue are clearly differentiated versus their competitors in terms of brand loyalty. They've delivered a very different brand experience to the customer from American, Delta, United, Continental, and British Airways, for example. So even in a highly commoditized market, you can drive loyalty through energized differentiation, that combination of differentiation and relevance. And a lot of that is really going to be driven by creating an experience. You also see in another commodity market, some of my favorite guys, the E-Trade babies. Trading stocks is an extremely commoditized market these days. But I find myself going to E-Trade just so I can see what the babies are up to next. Okay? So they've become relevant. It's interesting, it's entertaining, but once I'm there, in most cases, I know my personal behavior is I usually look at some other aspect of their product offering when I'm there. So ultimately, as marketers, we want to be relevant, high-energy brands, not just different, but differentiation that has some energy, specific energy associated with it. Now, a lot of us as marketers, sort of grew up on another old axiom of first to market. First to market wins. First to market's always the big winner. First to market is obviously an advantage, but not always the key indicator of success. Case in point, we'll go back to 1912 on this one. And my old friend Otto Frederick, I always want to call him Rottweiler, but he's actually Roweeder, I believe is the right term. He's the guy that figured out how to slice bread. Okay? First to market. Figured out how to slice bread, thought he was going to make a gazillion dollars, had venture capitalists, and he was on CNBC, the whole deal, back in 1912. So he figured out how to slice bread. The problem is, nobody cared. Nobody cared at all about the fact that I could get my bread sliced in 1912. 20 years later, however, Wonder Bread company comes out with sliced bread packaged nicely in the original artwork here. But they made the sliced bread relevant. Okay, people enjoyed the convenience of the sliced bread, but the convenience itself was not enough to get them to pay a premium for sliced bread. What was this line: build strong bodies 12 ways. Building strong bodies 12 ways, giving my children something healthy, and it being convenient as well. That made the Wonder Bread brand very relevant at that point. So convenience, innovation, just for innovation's sake, weren't enough. They needed relevance. And the relevance came with a promise to make my kids healthier by eating a big giant loaf of soft white bread. Okay? Later on we'll talk about things being true, which are often very helpful. Now as we talk about as we talk about our brands again, about relevant brands, another key issue is in today's market especially, very different from 1912, contextual relevance. Okay, contextual relevance. If we're welcome to talk to our target audience, we're not an intrusion. If we're welcome, we're not an intrusion. I'll use case in point. And the quote here: at any given market, in any given moment, in any given market, some people are all ears. They're ready to hear from us. There's somebody on the earth today that really cares what I have to say right now. Okay? Hopefully one of them is in the room. Perhaps not. Perhaps they'll be on the UCI extension program on the website. But hopefully somebody is welcoming us to give this message. And ultimately, someone hopefully is welcoming all of you to deliver your relevant message to them. The internet obviously has made this much easier in many ways. People want to hear from you. Okay, the question is, who wants to hear from you? Why is it they want to hear from you? When and how? Classic case here, company that's done this very well. Real Age. Okay, Real Age is one of the offshoots of the whole Dr. Oz phenomenon. Real Age has about 10 million members who go online and actively manage their personal health. Okay? As part of managing their personal health, they deliver tremendous amounts of information into Real Age, somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 specific data points that get to be very personal. Okay, when you go through Real Age, they want to know a lot of stuff that I'm not telling a lot of other people. Okay, some of it's sort of embarrassing if you had to see it in public. But all of a sudden, I feel very comfortable telling these people, lots of things I wouldn't tell my next door neighbor. Once that happens, then you're basically giving them permission to send you an ad. It's like Mrs. Smith saying, Real Age, thank you so much. Would you please send me 9 ads over the course of the next 9 weeks? It's contextually relevant. If I go in there and determine that I want to lose weight, for example, and I want some secret tips on how to lose weight other than diet and exercise. Creme brulee, by the way, that we served you today is going to be very helpful for those of you that have an interest in weight loss. Realage.com, actually, after you leave here, we'll help you out with that. The point is, you go in and you're asking. Mrs. Smith goes into Real Age and she is asking for marketers who have information that is relevant to her to deliver that information. That gets us into relevance, and relevance in a lot of cases becomes contextual today. We're not relevant to everybody. We're ultimately trying to drill down to determine contextually to whom we're relevant and to whom we're not. 2 more thoughts real quickly before John comes and gives you some real-life examples of this. And we want to talk for a moment just about the relevance of being remarkable. The relevance of being remarkable. How many of you have read Seth Godin's book, The Purple Cow? Anybody here read that? If you haven't read it, I'm going to help Seth make some money. Go get it. It's an easy read. I won't tell you which room of the house I read mine in, but I read the entire book in one very, very, very particular room in the house. So it's an easy read, so to speak. Anyway, the point that Seth made in his book, the premise of the book, The Purple Cow, was that he and his family were driving through France. And they were driving through the French countryside, and it was beautiful, and there were rolling hills, and there were cows. And the family was enamored with the cows. Oh, the beautiful cows, the green grass, etc., etc., etc. 20 minutes later, one of the kids goes, Dad, there's nothing but cows here. Okay? 20 minutes earlier, it's beautiful, they're great cows, etc. The cows have become irrelevant. There were so many of them, and they all looked the same, and it was just cow after cow after cow. And remember, we said earlier, repetition's not the key to being relevant. So after a while, this beautiful French cow had become irrelevant to the family. So the question we all have is, how do we make our brands remarkable? Okay? We have to be remarkable to remain relevant. We think of Disney World. Very relevant today. Okay? Why? Because it is remarkable. They intentionally create very remarkable experiences. And as marketers, we have to build remarkable elements into our brand in order to stay relevant over time. Final thought on this for all of us. This should be a scary thought. The opposite of remarkable is very good. Okay? I can be very, very good and not remarkable. There are somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 people that play basketball in the NBA, in the National Basketball Association. At the end of the day, about 8 jerseys sell. A lot. Okay? Because the players are remarkable. Kobe Bryant is remarkable. The other guys are very good. They're better than 99.9999% of all the other people on the planet that play basketball. But they're not remarkable in the context of their market, which is the NBA. So the opposite of remarkable is very good. With that said, I want to turn it over to John Hermy. And as we talk about brand relevance now, John's going to focus a bit more on really picking the right customers, or ultimately, to sum that up, the ones that we want, and ultimately the ones that we want when we want them. Okay, John?
Earlier, Clay talked about resources and the fact that we don't have as many resources as we would like. That's both budgets, but it's human resources too. You only have so many sales reps, you only have so many executives, and when you're starting going out in marketing, frankly, the executives will often do a lot of the selling. So how do we most effectively and efficiently have success? And that's what a lot of this is about. So here's the first example of or a framework for people to think about as they approach the market. Relevant to who? Go for your innovators and early adopters, and they'll tell the majority when to buy. This works very well in healthcare marketing. Think about who your innovators are, your early adopters. In some of the examples here, and some of the next case that I'm going to show you, we literally sit down with the clients and talk about this. We go into what organizations are they with, or we actually get down to names, and we start talking about who these people are going to be. Once the innovators start to move, once the early adopters start to move, you will see the rest of these people find out it's okay. What you're really doing is taking these people's interest to generate early sales, early success, and have them spread the word. Simply, this is a product we're working with, Plex ID. It's an Avid product. It's a PCR ESI mass spec system, and what it does is it allows you to test a sample and get results. And whereas before you would have to ask somebody, you'd have to basically say, is this X, is this Y, is this Z? This thing essentially tells you without getting too complex about it. Our campaign, Ask Differently, Ask Faster, this product is just launching, and the key, again, is getting the innovators and early adopters. Even a place like Avid has to consider this, given their resources. So, pick the right customers. Who's most important? Most profitable? Most likely to sneeze. When you sneeze, you're basically spreading germs across, and you're basically, so you're spreading, you're contagious, and it's essentially like a strong word-of-mouth analogy. That's another one of the purple cow Seth Godin's expressions. Ignore the rest for now. That's hard to do. That's discipline. You don't have to go off and say, I'm going to go after my entire target market at once. Pick the people you think that will help you sell the most. You're trying to turn them into your advocates, basically. Cater to the customers you choose if you can choose your customers. Another case study. This is going to get into a company, iScience. Startup. I think it's been a few years now. I don't know if they call themselves that now. They're getting a little more mature. They're a startup. It's an ophthalmology company. They make a catheter that goes into the eye. First catheter in the eye, so it's a big deal. And it essentially, the first therapeutic area they're going after is glaucoma. So, for us, our innovators are the glaucoma KOLs, the society leaders. The early adopters are cataract glaucoma surgeons, and we move forward to the high-volume cataract surgeons. Good example, though, of when we started, we literally sat down and decided who some of these people are. Now, invariably, they're going to be some of the people that do some of your trials. And that's That's, I think, a known quantity. But even then, you have to ask yourself, which one of these people do I really want to be my spokespeople? Is this a good scientist that I don't want to have to be my advocate? Or the people that weren't involved in my trial that I want to get and go recruit? This just comes back to the limited resources conversation. You really need to sit down and think about, who do I want being my person, spreading my word. What we did with iScience was we went through a step-by-step process with them. Number one, define the brand. So that's typical things you hear: positioning, messaging, logical reasons to use, things like that. Okay, that all sits to define the brand. When you're done doing that, what we call a brand map, when you're done with your brand map, it's important that you ask yourself questions. Does my brand have clarity, relevance, energy, leverage, differentiation? And we literally walk through and ask ourselves those questions and take a test and say, is this going to pass muster or not? So start with your brand, define it, and then put yourself through this test and say, am I ready to go to market? Second step, develop brand guidelines. Just an extension of that. What are my brand roles? This company actually has multiple products, and they can be used in the back of the eye too. So you have to say to yourself, plan now for the future. You should probably know how your brand's going to evolve, or at least how you think it's going to evolve in the next few years. So how does the eye ultrasound play versus the eye track? Well, in our case, the eye track's more important. But we had to have that discussion. What's really the lead product here in the mix? Is it the eye track? Is it the eye ultrasound? Keep rolling. So basically get your guidelines. Step 3, communication infrastructure, and architecture. We've gone ahead and we've put up the different types of audiences that I think most of you have to also deal with. Your KOLs, your innovators, your investors, even the media. Think about what each person hears. If you need to write a separate communications platform for each one, then go ahead and do that. The message can be tailored and shifted slightly for each. Fourth, brand launch. So now that you've got your message, you've got your brand, you're ready to launch. Go ahead and do your brand launch next. You can see different pieces there. Internally, you really should sit down. In the case of iScience, there was an internal meeting where everybody went through the brand map. Why? Because they're all out there in the field. Even the engineers go out, right? They go out, they talk to customers. Basically, just about anybody can. The executives can. R&D guys are out in the field all the time. I think a lot of the R&D guys have more impact on these people than the salespeople, truthfully. So sit down and say, I'm going to go through my entire company with my brand map. And I want everybody singing off the same songbook. KOLs and glaucoma innovators. In this specific instance, some of the company executives went and met with KOLs specifically to go through this, because they wanted to make sure that these KOLs knew how to speak about the company. It was that important to them to sit down and say, here's how we want to talk about ourselves. Stepping back, truthfully, some of these people were involved all the way back to steps 1, 2, and 3. We included them. But get these people ready to talk the way you want to talk. PR. We started with PR. Again, that's a resource thing. And the trade publications really like fresh news. We held a news conference in one of the major trade shows. That was one of our first tactics. I say media on this slide, but really we didn't go do trade advertising right away. We didn't start trade advertising for almost 2 years. Because again, we were focusing on word of mouth and getting it going. And only when the word of mouth was growing enough did we then go out and do an ad campaign. Highly relevant brand connections. So what you see down here on the left are a couple examples of peer-to-peer. In this specific case, and I think this is true a lot, highly relevant brand connections. So what you see down here on the left are a couple examples of peer-to-peer. In this specific case, and I think this is true a lot, peer-to-peer for what we do is very, very important. We filmed presentations. These are two of our thought leaders, Dr. Lewis and Dr. Shington. We filmed them at a major conference and made it available via the internet so people could hear their thoughts. This is an example. This is actually social media. We called it the iForum. And it is a social media where the doctors that are trained log in, password protected. They go in and they share their pearls of wisdom, their thoughts, their techniques. All techniques evolve. We all think we can go out and tell the doctors, here's how you do my technique. Well, they all changed. They put little nuances, etc. And they love to hear about that. That's what they like to talk about. So this is an opportunity in a password-protected environment for them to share and influence each other in what they're doing. And it's a way that nobody else can get in. Doctors don't like to put stuff on the internet, we find, unless they think it's got appropriate safeguards. So that's what we've done here. We've created peer-to-peer communication. And last, actually not last, let the customer be the brand. So this is an example of iScience, the iForum. These videos are videos they're posting. Basically, we get them to talk about this stuff, and it turns out that we don't need to do as much. The other way to do this is do your users conferences, put them up on the podium. You can also have them do your didactic courses. But it's the whole idea of taking them and using them as to be part of your brand. The iForum has a message board, video gallery you've seen, and we put procedural education on it also. Last, equip the customer to be an active brand participant. Surgeon training, we've involved some of them in didactic training. The MD-to-MD referral. This is within ophthalmology, but the practice patterns are very similar in a lot of disciplines. People that do this canaloplasty procedure, you'll have your set of surgeons start. There are people that address glaucoma specifically that don't even do this surgery. So we made tools so that one glaucoma person can talk to another and say, hey, I can do this if you're at a last resort. We made tools that they could send into a general ophthalmologist or a cataract surgeon. And there is actually a variation of these that are made for the ODs. So really think about your channels and how do you let doctors reach out to other doctors and make their referral, get their referral network stronger. That's a big piece of it. All we've done is basically give them tools to make it simple so that they can turn around and if they want to hand it to one of their office admins and have them send out all these letters on their behalf and all these materials. It's a good way to introduce a topic. Finally, patient education. Let them educate their patients also. I'm going to turn it back over to Clay.
Very good. Thanks, John. So what John just showed us, again, is a great example of really the targeting that has to occur to be relevant. And in other words, we have to narrow down, especially with startup brands. There's usually a very small segment of the market to whom any startup brand is relevant. What we have to do is turn those people into, the term John just used was sneezers. Turn them into sneezers and point them in the right direction. A little bit of a gross analogy here, but to sneeze on the right people in this case. So iScience is a great example of where that occurred. Now, let's move on here before we talk about the processes for doing this, just a little more context. We're trying to create relevant brands, and that's partly done through creating relevant brand experiences. So many more of the brands that we interact with in today's culture are brands in which we're immersed or in which we are active participants. So we want to try to look for opportunities to create active participation or even immersion in the brands that we're marketing. When we talk about experiences, we talk about looking at experience realms, and we talk about immersion. Okay, so I'm going and immersing in either an aesthetic or an escapist type activity, or I'm an active participant, perhaps in an educational program or educational environment. We're really trying to avoid, as much as possible, sort of absorptive or passive experiences. Now, by default, we'll have to have some of those, but where we really create relevance is more in this zone here. As we're talking about active participants or participants who are literally immersed in our brand. What do we mean by that? We gain value through experience. Our brands become more valuable. Okay, all of us have grown up in the era where we went from paying, X number of pennies for a cup of coffee to a minimum of a few bucks. Okay, every morning or most mornings for a cup of coffee. So ultimately, creating a relevant experience lets us move into the realm of, we are what we charge for. Okay, Starbucks is not selling coffee. Okay, they literally, when people say, I'm going to go get a Starbucks, and they don't say I'm going to get a cup of coffee in many cases. I'm going to get a Starbucks. A Starbucks can apply to many different items on the menu, but they're going to get a Starbucks. They're going to have that experience that they're not getting by pulling into the to the gas station and getting a cup of coffee that way. Okay, so when our brand becomes the definition of the experience, at that point we have the ability to charge more for that brand because it's become relevant in day-to-day life. Now, as we talk about experiences too and about gaining more value for our brand there, we want to create brands that transcend, again, simple goods and services. Take, for example, the Nike Spark system. And have any of you ever seen this, the Spark system? Okay, it's a training system. Okay, I purchased one of these for the happy price of $200, thinking that all of the future Olympians or NFL players in my house would immediately run out into the field and train themselves into peak condition. Okay, I'll sell it to anybody that wants it for $10 at this point. So anyway, the point is, the whole proposition here is that I need to turn $10 worth of plastic and nylon into a $200 value as a brand. How do I do that? I'm embedding my goods and services into an experience, the experience of training. The Spark system is an immersion brand. Okay, I am not just looking at the brand or seeing the brand. I am the brand. I become the epitome of what's being shown to me on the website or on the commercials. I become this chiseled NFL linebacker. When I'm out running through those little ropes in the park, okay, I become this guy. Okay, and I'm not a 49-year-old guy that can lose a few more pounds. I become that guy. I'm immersed in the brand, and as a result, I'll pay more for it. Okay, matter of fact, I'll pay $200 for $10 worth of plastic and nylon. So let's take a look at now taking that concept of creating an experience, a brand experience, into real life. And I'm going to use an example here around what we call the Heart Hope brand. Our client here is a client in Thoratec Corporation, a leader in the cardiovascular world. They make ventricular assist devices for people who are very, very sick with advanced stage heart failure. The alternative to which is a transplant or death, unfortunately. In many cases, these are very sick patients. At the time that we began working with Thoratec and we looked at this map, the situation was that they were the leaders in technology. Technology had been approved by the FDA, but the technology certainly had not advanced to its final form. Also, as you go through an FDA clinical trial, you learn a lot about the application of the technology, okay, and how that can be better used. So we had a technology, wasn't the ultimate technology yet, but it was good, but it was going to help move the discipline of ventricular assist devices, or move that field along, so that surgeons could treat these sick patients. But you had a lot of other companies coming into the marketplace as well, and so for Thoratec in this case, they realized that what we needed to do was to create a shared experience where the company, as a responsible participant and highly committed, we're talking about context here, highly committed customers could participate jointly in the experience of ushering this technology along and helping more people, ultimately creating a market, but also creating a therapy category that was viable. Okay? So with that being the context, which we learned, by the way, through a lot of market research with the customers, okay, on the front end, the customers told us they wanted the company to do well. They wanted the company to be the responsible steward, and they wanted to see the market do well. So by what we did based on that is we focused on becoming relevant to 30 surgeons in the United States, 30 innovators at major heart centers in the country. And what we understood from them is they wanted a platform, a relationship to help train their referring physicians and to reach out and educate patients and families, because patients and families were much more interested in a therapy that was an alternative to dying than were, say, people reading a scientific journal, okay, and not really putting a face to it. As a result, we created a brand for this relationship that was going to last over a period of time called Heart Hope. So with the Heart Hope brand, what we did is over the last 7 years now, that brand began by helping those 30 centers. Okay, again, we've narrowed the focus. We want to be relevant to 30 centers, helping them communicate with the market, with patients and families, helping them with education of referring physicians, and really partnering with them in a shared experience of creating a new therapy category. We also, when we look at Immersion, we incorporated those customers into participating in developing advanced practice guidelines. Guidelines that were going to evolve over time. We actively reached out and created what we call the Park City Work Group, where some of those 30 physicians joined together. Again, they became immersed in the brand. All of this communication, by the way, done under the umbrella of this Heart Hope relationship brand. Today, that brand has evolved. We need that brand to be more relevant to more people today. Today, there are hundreds of centers that now do this procedure nationally, that use the technology, actually more hundreds globally. The Heart Hope brand has become such a strong brand in terms of the relationship that it really has become the entire brand contextually for educating cardiologists and referring physicians, if you will, who are caring for these patients in their community. So what began as sort of a program relationship has evolved really into a branded relationship overall that the company has with its customers. Again, all the result of entering into a shared experience and immersing the customer into our brand. Our customer became our brand through Heart Hope. So let's go to the final leg here in terms of what are the tools that we're going to use. We want to create relevant brands. How are we going to do that? We're going to start contextually with where the brand fits. And we'll use a portfolio strategy map. Some of you have probably used tools like this before. This will help us decide, where do we fit in the universe? Where do we fit in the universe? Does our brand fit? How does our brand fit within the universe of brands that we have in our company? Okay, are we a single product company? Are we a multi-product company? Are we multinational, etc.? How do we fit? What's the context for our brand? All of which will feed us down to what John talked about earlier, is synergy and leverage and relevance and differentiation and ultimately clarity in the communication of our brand message. So we always will start with context. At that point, we'll move in more to the brand map, which is really putting expression to the position that we want to occupy in the market. Okay? When we talk about brand map, we're now talking about getting everything into alignment. When what we'll call internal and external identities, okay, what we really are in the market and what we say we want to be internally, when those come into alignment, we have a strong brand. Okay? A quick departure into narcissism for 30 seconds. This was a quote that a client of ours gave me unaided a few weeks ago. We're having lunch in the Bay Area, and he says, we can get pretty pictures from a lot of places. But what I work with you guys, because when I need to get strategic help, I get it when I need it. I always know that I can get it. Our number one brand value as a company is be strategic in all things. Number one brand value of the company. Our client, not knowing that was a particular value expressed in our own brand map, just communicated it to us over lunch. Okay? So that worked well. As we talk about the brand mapping process, there are really four components that we want to look at. First of all, we'll talk about brand values. Okay? And when we talk about brand values, we want to talk about those values for our brand that are so integral that basically our brand would die. Our brand would just go away if that value ceased to exist. Okay? Now, when we look at that brand value, we also recognize if we say it's that important, do we adhere to it? Brand values are those values that we should adhere to no matter what. Okay? Nuclear, winter is raining down on us, and we're going to maintain that brand value no matter what. So we'll go through what we call a tombstone exercise. If we look at that value, that brand value that we say is so important, would our customer miss it if it went away? Would our employees miss that value if it went away? And would I miss it, frankly, if it went away? Okay? So we go through what's called a tombstone exercise there. Once we've established our values, then we get into the core message. This becomes now, we're getting to the challenging part. As John talked about earlier, narrowing down that message. Core message. Why do we exist? We need to go through a perception reality exercise here. Ultimately we're trying to get to the big idea in a simple statement, in a differentiating manner, and guess what? It has to be true. Okay? We've all seen some examples recently of brands that were projected to be one thing, but turned out, maybe not. Maybe weren't quite as true. Simple litmus test here. Litmus test to apply. Read your core brand message to someone. Because we talk about simplicity. Okay? Read it to somebody and then ask them to say it back to you. If they can't repeat it back to you the first time, go back. Probably either doesn't make sense or it's a little bit too long. Okay? I got to be able to get it the first time. Litmus test, also for my brand message. Have I made the choice easy? Okay, when the customer sees my message versus another message, have I made the choice easy? Is it black and white? Do they clearly know what I do? And is that differentiated? Again, is there clarity here? I want black and white. I don't want shades of gray in my core message. Ultimately, also, my message needs to speak to what's important to the customer. I'm not just blowing my own horn. Okay, so things like, we're the fastest this, we're the biggest this, we're the world's best this. All that's about me. The brand message has got to be about what's relevant to my customer. Great case in point here, AMO, Advanced Medical Optics, which is now Abbott Medical Optics, last year. Brand message, vision for life. Vision for life. Vision for life was developed to communicate to the customer what the company is all about. The core brand message, as a company, we're about vision for life. We're about providing you with this.
They're the focus of your energy, expertise, and passion. At a clinical level, your focus is quality of vision, but there's more, much more. You want to give each individual patient vision that optimizes their potential, their experiences, their life. At AMO, your focus is our focus. With a spectrum of advanced refractive technologies, practice, and professional support, plus a proven track record of delivering optimal vision and lifestyle experiences, we're completely focused on helping you grow your practice and deliver vision for life. We call this commitment the complete refractive solution.
So, relevance, vision for life. From 9 to 90, the technology, the support, and the lifestyle experience for our customer's customer. When we try to define the core message, what is the company all about? The company has done a fabulous job of developing technologies or acquiring technologies that all, when put together, allow the ophthalmologist, the surgeon, to deliver vision for life, a better life experience for their patient by using this combination of technologies and with the support that the company was going to provide to make them successful. Ultimately, the company got in alignment with the customer. The customer's focus was our focus. It was a mirror image of delivering vision for life. The method for doing that was what we called being the complete refractive solution to the customer to help the customer meet their customer's needs, which is vision for life. So what's the company all about? Vision for life. Delivering, helping you, doctor, deliver vision for life for your patients. These patients, young to old, they're your focus, they're our focus too. We're in alignment. Now, when we move beyond the brand map, again, when we talk about creating the message, our core brand message, a lot of times people get hung up on, well, you know, another company might say something similar to that. You're always going to run into that issue. But take the case of FedEx. When FedEx got into the overnight shipping business, there were other companies that did overnight shipping. What FedEx did with their core brand message was deliver a core brand message to the market that was differentiated versus the Postal Service, but more importantly, it was a message they could own. They could do it, and they could deliver that experience, and they got down to the essence of what was important to the customer. Absolutely, positively, has to be there overnight. Okay? If you want to roll the dice, call UPS, call the Postal Service, call your friend, call whatever. If it absolutely has to be there overnight, if you need that confidence, call us. Okay? Was it the most differentiated? No. But it was a brand they could own, it's a brand they could live and be true to every day, and people could live it. Now, when we're talking about our core message, again, who do we focus on? John alluded to earlier. Discipline in our messaging is key. Who do we focus on? We use the term lightning rod audience. If lightning could strike one place in your business world to make you successful, one place, if it could strike a person, a group of people, a narrowly defined spot on this earth, where would it strike? We call that the lightning rod audience. Okay? These are the people that are the influencers, the experts, the gatekeepers. They're the people that are going to tell others. They're the people with whom we have to be relevant initially. A lot of core brand messages get diluted, and as a result of dilution, irrelevant, because they don't focus on that narrow audience. They're trying to be everything to everybody. The key to avoiding that is to identify that narrow an audience as possible for your relevance, and we call that the lightning rod audience. Then you go test it. We call that see what they hear through testing, either qualitatively or quantitatively. When I say those words to my customer, what are they hearing? I know what I may be thinking. What are they hearing? We've got to make sure that what they're hearing is relevant as well. Messages, a core message. Every time you add a layer of messaging to your core message, you're doing two things. One, you're adding new competitors. And two, you're adding a new financial commitment that it's going to take to back that up. All the more reason to keep the number of messages very, very focused, and again, ultimately to a core brand message, if possible. After we get to the brand values and the core brand message, we get into personality. Every brand has a personality. When we talk about brand personality, who are we going to be in all circumstances? Newness is not a personality. Okay, well, this is new. It's great, but it's not new forever. Okay, so newness is not a personality. It's a short-term tactic. Let's look at this.
How hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. If you know what you're worth, go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hit. This is what we do. Who we are. Live for nothing. Or die for something.
Two different movies, two different characters, same actor. Okay? Sylvester Stallone has created a brand personality. Whether he's Rocky, young Rocky or old Rocky, or Rambo. Understand there's an old Rambo coming out? Rambo wheelchair warrior, something to that effect. Ultimately, though, that brand personality is consistent. The unbeatable spirit, the comeback kid, the guy willing to take a hit to get the job done. That to me was a great example of how the personality needs to really be who you are over time. Okay, I don't want Sylvester Stallone to be new. He may have a new movie, but I'm looking for the confidence, the assuredness in that brand that comes with a consistent personality. And then finally, we look at icons. Okay, every brand is going to have value, message, personality, and then ultimately, you're going to have icons associated with the brand. Your name, your logo, those are easy. Okay, but you're also going to have colors and shapes and other elements that are going to be iconic to your brand. Okay, and even starting at the name and going forward, it communicates a lot about the personality and about the relationship. You know, if we had IBM and Apple and they were here and they had a little name tag. Hello, my name is IBM, International Business Machines. I'm thinking, okay, you're probably well organized and you know, it's great. Hi, my name's Apple. Okay, I'm thinking, well, you're sort of fun to be around, perhaps. If you met IBM over there, he needs a personality makeover. So you see there the whole issue of our personalities expressed through the various icons, and the name is just the beginning of that. A lot of times we'll have clients come to us, they say, okay, we've got to create a brand. What they really mean is I got to get a name. Okay, a name is one of the last things that you want to do in creating a brand. Okay, naming comes pretty far down the road. When we look at brand icons, there are certain elements in this world that are very iconic. Michael Jordan is still the #1 brand icon associated with basketball shoes today. He hadn't played in a little while. Okay, brand icons have to be true to the brand. The good news about Michael Jordan as a brand icon for your Nike basketball shoes is he's been there, done that. He's not going to break his leg or throw the ball out of bounds in the last second anymore. It's a known quantity at this point. So, brand icons are good. Using people can be good. Using people can also have some challenges. If the brand icon turns out not to be true to the brand personality and the brand values that they had been projecting. Okay, so not to take a shot at Tiger, but it's the most relevant example of that in the market today. So, brand icons, be careful when we pick our brand icons. Make sure that those are icons with which we have a high level of confidence as being sustainable over time. Finally, as an example, just quick example of reshaping brand personalities in the life sciences space. A company here, MP Biomedicals. You see a very traditional technology ad. I show the machine. I tell you some features about the machine. It looks like 15 other ads in the same scientific publication. Okay? We went and evaluated the audience. The target audience, the lightning rod decision maker in that laboratory, is a master's, PhD level person, maybe a grad student even, master's, PhD level, somebody in their late 20s to 30s, smart, perhaps a little quirky, but definitely not a boring group of people. They've got a unique sense of humor, as we learned in going in there. And whether it was our client's ad or brand or any other competitive brands, they were all pretty boring. The brand personalities of the instruments didn't really match and fit with the audience that they were selling to. So we came in and decided that the brand personality needed a makeover. Okay? And so what we've done now here is gone to playing on some of that quirkiness. You see a product ad here, dirty samples, tiny samples, tough samples. You got a rat with a knife. Okay, for example, and these are issues that the scientists are dealing with. No problem with Fast Prep, which is an automated lysing and homogenation system. So we've taken sort of boring science, instrument, lab equipment, and really tried to project a personality with some quirkiness and interest, but by staying on message as well. I mean, quirkiness for quirkiness' sake is not a strategy. Okay. But trying to make it more relevant, differentiate, and create personalities that ultimately the scientist can interact with. Final thought here, persuasion architecture. How do we persuade our customers? How do we get invited in to participate with them? We've got to get our angle of approach right. For example, we've got to understand the customer's need. I've got a fat dog. Okay? My dog is fat. How does my customer perceive the fat dog issue? My dog is fat. My dog is overweight. My dog needs new food. Okay, it's not the dog's fault. Dog needs a nutritionist. Dog needs to lose weight. Maybe be on a diet. Maybe needs liposuction. Whatever it is the dog needs. How does the customer define their fat dog problem? Okay, got a fat dog. Customer's going to define it a certain way. I've got to understand that so I can make my proposition relevant to the customer. Once I've done that, I understand how they're approaching, then I'm going to go create what's called a persuasion architecture and decide how am I going to interact with the customer at every phase of the buying process in a way that is going to be relevant to them, so that I'm giving them the experience and the information they need at every step of the process that they're logically going to take. Okay? And that's going to be situational, and it's going to be based upon my client's unique personality characteristics as well. With that said, John's going to take 2 minutes, tell you a little bit about DevicePharm, and then I'll join you back again to wrap up. John?
Okay, well, very brief intro. Very brief intro. Here we go. DevicePharm, well, you've obviously seen us speak for a while. What we are is a provider of marketing strategy and integrated solutions, marketing solutions in the medical and healthcare space. Word strategy is very purposeful. You can see we like to attack problems very strategically from start to finish and maintain that throughout the life of the brand. I don't know what I've done, but
Just, if you go down to the bottom there, pick up the arrow. Good shiz.
there we go. Our mission is to help. We help medical manufacturers develop and execute marketing strategies to connect and serve their customers and meet their business objectives. So again, we have a very strategic focus. I do want to mention, beyond some of the things you've seen today with creating brands, we do execute our brands fully. You've seen a few deliverables up here that we've done, some campaigns and some pieces. Once we identify a brand, create a strategy, DevicePharm is an agency that can take you all the way through to completion. Tactically, we like to say we have the experience to know, the resources to do. Experience to know, we're industry-specific resource, senior management with over 70 years. Scientific and medical knowledge, we have an MD, Director of Medical Content. Resources to do, proven record of success. We've launched over 200 devices. It's probably closer to 300 at this point, truthfully. We haven't updated this slide in a long time. An award-winning creative excellence. Our creative director, for instance, has about 25 years in the business. Many of our other creative staff and our writers have extensive experience too. So it's what we do, it's all we do. Experience and resources to do. I'm John Hermey. I'm a Kellogg MBA. I've been doing healthcare specifically for about 12 years. Been a management consultant and been working in the marketing space for about 20 years now. And finally, Clay.
There we go. All right, this is the last thing you're going to hear from us. So first of all, before I say thank you, my background, graduate of Vanderbilt, been involved in healthcare marketing since 1985. Served on a few corporate boards and advisory capacity to some other companies as well, and so again have been very focused both on the provider side early on as well as just today with an exclusive focus really on medical manufacturers, medical device, life science, biotech companies as we serve them as clients. Okay, but you see just a snapshot of my background as well.